Hey folks, this is Brian. I'm one of the co-founders and CTO here at Zapier, and today I want to show off something we've been working on called Sub-Zaps, or you can think of them as reusable zaps or composable zaps. And the basic idea is we've seen users creating really complex zap systems, and often these zaps have reused steps. They're all going out to the same spreadsheet or the same CRM or sending the same Slack message, and whenever you want to update them, you got to go into each and every one of those zaps. Maybe you have dozens of zaps. Maybe you have zaps deployed for multiple, cities or multiple clients that are very similar. But when you want to update those, it's quite a pain to update them in each and every spot. So the idea behind Sub-Zaps is that you can pull out some of those steps, put them in another zap, and then just call them. You got to define what goes into those apps and what you get out of them, and it stays consistent. So anytime you want to, let's say, swap out that spreadsheet or use a different CRM or maybe add more data, you can go to one single spot, and then all of the parent zaps that are talking to that, they don't miss a beat. They just keep on running. So let me show you kind of this use case right here. We have a kind of a 3-zap system set up, and it's collecting data from 2 different forms. One of these forms is kind of a contact form. We have that hosted in Typeform. Here, I'll show you real quick what that looks like. It's basically this free-form kind of support piece of content that comes with like an email address and then what's going on, what's the problem. And we have another form set up, which is a Wufoo form. It's hosted here, and it's really about appointment requests. So this is more of kind of a sales motion. And you might have this in your company. You have like this spreadsheet that has all this customer data in it. And ours is a small one, but you might have a really large one. And you might have a CRM set up that has other information in it. So we want to be able to grab that customer information out and then put it into the right Slack room. But from these 2 different forms, we want it to look up the same customer information. We want it to be kind of similar and consistent in that experience, certainly internally, and we want it to be easier to manage. So this is where Sub-Zaps come in, and I'll go and show you the zaps here behind it. So here's this Wufoo one, and that's really about those appointments, right? And sending to Slack here at the end. And these are very standard, trigger whenever there's a new subscription, send the Slack message, very standard. You can see this in the other zap as well. This is the Typeform one. This is capturing that customer feedback and sending it to Slack. But you'll notice that there is something a little bit different about these, and that's this kind of calling a Sub-Zap. So we're going to jump straight into the Sub-Zap so you can see kind of the lookup of the spreadsheet. Because normally you'd expect to see the spreadsheet in the Pipedrive steps right here, but instead we're replacing that with the Sub-Zap call. So let's hop in there. So inside of this, you can see what you thought you might have saw in those other zaps, but they're actually located in this Sub-Zap. And this is, again, very standard Zapier stuff here in the middle. The only new pieces are this start a Sub-Zap and return from this Sub-Zap. So if you click into this and you want to set up this trigger, you're going to see that you have an input argument list. In this case, we're just listing out, email address. But you can add as much stuff here as you want. You can have company. You can really put anything in there. And the way this works is that if you hop over to your Sub-Zap and you go in and you look at this, you're going to see this field showing up. So let's do a quick example and say, maybe you need to know the favorite color of the customer, right? So you go in here, we click continue. Now that's saved. Pause my zap, I'll remember to turn that back on. If we go here and we refresh these fields, you'll see it pop up here. Now that lets you kind of reuse these pieces and kind of define what is supposed to be in or out of these apps. And the same thing would happen here if we went into this Typeform example and we looked at this. It's also passing in the email address, but we're going to go ahead and refresh those fields, and now you see that pop up. We actually don't need that in there, so I'm going to go back and remove that for the purposes of this demo. And let's make sure to remember to turn this app on. And the idea here is this email now coming in. We have mike@zapier.com. We're going to look this up in a spreadsheet. And this is again, normal Zapier stuff. So nothing really new here. You're just looking up this information. Whenever you go to the pipe drive, you're also just looking them up in whatever that service is, just looking at the email. And this is really where, we close the loop. When we return from the Sub-Zap, that's just saying, hey, I'm finished. Go ahead to whatever the parent Zap is. Keep on running. You get to define what you want your outputs to be. Now, your outputs can be a mix of any of the data that came before it. So in this case, we have first name, we have last name, we have the company, we have the tenure, and we have the internal ID. And these all come from different sources. So in the future, if I wanted to swap this out or add more data, or maybe the internal ID, I want it to be actually computed from something else, I could add another step, I could look it up in a different thing. And no other Zap would need to be paused or changed as I change these out. I mean, I can just add more stuff here as I like. And then as I come back to my step here and I'm testing out this composable bit, you're going to see those values come back. So customer first name, last name, company, tenure, internal ID, these all match the outputs from your Zap. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. The idea is we have these parent Zaps, they call these Sub-Zaps, and then the Sub-Zaps do whatever they need to do, gathering data and then returning that data back up to the parent Zap. Now, I only have two Zaps calling this, but you could have hundreds, you could have thousands of Zaps calling this Sub-Zap, and it should scale just the same. So if you need to go and update that, it's still just one spot that you need to update that Sub-Zap. So let's do a quick demo. So let's make sure all of our Zaps are nice and on. Looks like these are all on. Perfect. Okay. In this support form, we're going to say, Wade is sending a support message in. He says, I need help turning on my computer. I don't know how he's filling this out without his computer on, but nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and submit that. And then we got an appointment request. So over here, we're going to say maybe me, right? And I want an appointment for tomorrow, let's say at noon. And say I need to discuss a new widget extractor. Perfect. Sounds very exciting. Oh, we got to spell that correctly. And we're going to go ahead and submit that. So behind the scenes, it's going to be doing what a normal Zap does. It's going to trigger two different Zaps for those two different triggers. The difference is when it gets to that second step, it's going to go to that Sub-Zap, pass in that email address, go look up all the stuff from spreadsheets, go look up all the stuff from Pipedrive, and then return it back. Now, when it gets back to each of those parent Zaps, then it's free to continue doing whatever it's doing. And in this case, it's a Slack message. And we have these kind of being partitioned off to different rooms for those different Zaps, even though it was getting similar data. Let's go and take a look and make sure that these got created. So in sales, we see that that I contacted sales for the widget extractor, and it has this extra information. Now this is kind of pulled together from multiple sources. We have stuff from the spreadsheet, we have stuff from Pipedrive here, and then also stuff from the spreadsheet there. If we hop over to support, exact same thing. Here's Wade's information coming in, and that internal ID is also located there. So if we actually hop over, I'll show you what the task history looks like for this, so you can see what it looks like. And each of these Zaps ran, so there's one trigger for each of those, and then the Sub-Zap ran twice. And we should actually see that. So if we look at this Zap history for that, here's this a new appointment one, and here's me, and then here's that output data, right, coming back. And it even has this subtask task history link. So if I copy this and paste it here, I'll be able to see that. But you can see that there's two Sub-Zaps that actually ran. So let's actually paste that link in that other one gave me so that we can see the exact task that was correlated with that. And you can see that the input field came in, and it was Brian at Zapier. We looked it up in the spreadsheet, and it collected all this data. Looked it up in Pipedrive, it collected all that data. And then it returned this data back out. And you can even see the parent task history link to kind of point you back to the original. So if I go back to the screen I just looked at, you'll see that it's the same one that we just saw. So hopefully this gives you all a good idea of kind of the power of using composable zaps here in Zapier. And hopefully you'll be able to find ways to remix this and do interesting things and build even more powerful systems to run your business. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach us at contact@zapier.com, or you can email me personally, Brian@zapier.com. Thanks a bunch.